It's a thankless job. I apologize.
No, I think that's great. Are there any other nominations for secretary?
Can you call Uncle Pete? He keeps calling me.
Okay, there seems to be no other nominations for secretary, so all in favor of Kyle, please say
You need
aye.
a second, Jeff.
I'm sorry.
I
Would
second.
anyone like to second that?
I'll second it. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Great.
Okay, this is my time to leave. I just want to thank all of you for agreeing to be on this committee and have a lot of fun thinking up some great ideas. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you at another time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joan.
Thank you.
Okay. To give credit where credit's due, I have to give this to Sharon Norris, the township secretary. She thought that we may want to have a purpose or a mission statement. So on the agenda tonight, there's one for you to consider. It certainly doesn't mean that we need to adopt one, and we can certainly revise it, but if anyone has any comments.
My only suggestion was that maybe we should get through one meeting and maybe have time to kind of think about after the meeting and maybe revisit this.
I think that's a good idea.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Perfect.
Agreed.
Does that sound okay? I don't know.
That's perfect. The next section is the authority of the board, which was taken directly from the ordinance that was passed. So I didn't know if anyone wanted to discuss that, any of those items A through F. One of the things we need to do is set up a time for future meetings. You know, if we wanted to do a certain day of the month and time. So does anyone have any suggestions for that?
I like Thursdays. I think Thursdays is a good day.
Okay. Does anyone, I'm sorry.
At this time? Was this time okay?
It's a little early. Is it early for anyone else?
I thought it was great, but that doesn't.
Yeah, it's fine.
I was going to say 7 just because maybe because the supervisors meeting's at 7. It just makes me think 7 seems more consistent. I don't know if does that work? Is that late enough?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
Should work for me.
Third Thursday of the month?
How does that line up, Paul, maybe with us getting information to the Board of Supervisors? Does that work?
They are the third Wednesday, so you would be a day behind.
So would we want to be closer to, like, maybe skip, like, be the week after, or I don't know how that works.
Second.
Closer.
Second Thursday?
That would work for me if we did the second Thursday, and then that would give us more time to, if we had to pull information together. I don't know.
Hold on, Jeff. Is it still the third Wednesday? What's the supervisor schedule?
It is the third Wednesday of the month, sir.
So Jennifer, you're proposing what? Second Thursday?
Would that be, I mean, whatever is, I guess whatever would work better for the supervisors. I'm not familiar with how we would get the information to them, or.
Greg would be doing that.
What works better for you, Greg? Whatever works best for you.
Yeah, I'm pretty flexible. Anything that you guys have suggested works for me.
Yeah, normally what we try and do in the office is Sharon puts a lot of effort into creating board books, and they go out the Friday before the third Wednesday of the month. I'm not saying you have to include anything. I'm just saying if we wanted to give them information, that would be a time to do it, or you could do it at the township meeting. But if it was something important, I'd want to give them time to consider it, the board.
So if we met the second Thursday, we would only have one day to get them information, is what you're saying.
Right.
So,
But again, it's not the be all end all. It's just, it's just a thought to throw out there.
Would the first Thursday be better?
That would be a planning commission meeting.
Whatever works for everyone.
yeah.
I'm fine with it.
First Wednesday of the month.
Yeah, that would be good. First Wednesday, you said?
Yes, sir. How about everyone else?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay,
Okay.
First Wednesday at 7?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
so Jeff, who could create the Zoom meetings? Joan created this one. Is it something you could do, or who has an account?
Paul, the township has an account, and it's super easy to do, to sign in and do this and do the scheduling. So if for some reason I'm on vacation and Joan can't be there, it's easy enough to show you how to do it. It's simple.
But if you don't have an account, the meeting's limited to 40 minutes or something, isn't it?
We have a paid account. The township has a paid account, so I could, again, if we're not available, if it's Mr. Sachs or if it's you, Paul, I could give you the sign-in credentials and it would be fine.
Okay.
That works.
Do we want to talk about the authority of the board, or do we just, what do you think, Greg and Paul?
I mean, I would love to, get into more of what we're actually going to do, but that's up to you guys.
Do you have anything to offer, Paul?
I was reading the authority, and it seems one thing missing from the authority is, in our name of our committee is open space. And there's very little in there about open space, but I guess the very first one just says address open space needs. So I assume that's enough.
I was thinking it would give residents or property owners the opportunity to come talk to us. And if the committee thought it was a worthwhile project, then we would, work with the board and whichever county or state agency there would be.
Right. All right. So, well, does anybody have any questions about the authority of the board that's written there on our agenda? Otherwise, we might go to what Greg said, and I'm sure everyone has some ideas that they joined this committee for. Maybe we could document some of that and jot down what their ideas are before they're lost, what they came here for, and what some of the projects are we might start on.
I mean, if you don't mind if I start, that was part of the reason why I wanted to wait on the mission statement, is because I do feel like we need to talk about the expansion and preservation of open spaces. And that's kind of why I wanted to join. So I was thinking if we had a week, we could add that maybe to the mission statement and maybe work that in, but have everybody listen to everybody and then work that into the mission statement for the next meeting.
Good. So does anyone else have any projects they were thinking of or ideas? Like I know talking earlier to Kyle, you said, or you had described that you go to Glasgow because you don't like our trails. They're not marked.
Well, yeah, they're not marked. You kind of don't know which direction you're going or where. Like we tried to walk crossings and they have too many paths, and they're not labeled how long they are, and some of them are paved, and then you don't know if you go through the woods or you stay on the paved part, so I think, they need to be labeled, maybe markings on the ground that people can follow or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea, and if it encourages people to walk, that's great, and it might be an easy scout project.
Yeah, because I know you don't want people walking on the roads, especially at crossing, because the cars are on there. But it seems like if you don't go through the woods, that's where you're going to end up. We were down by the soccer field, and we couldn't get back without going on the road to get to the other side, because we didn't know to go through the woods. So
I would love to make a map of it.
What was
What
that?
I,
But I
what
would
I
love to
can,
make a map of it.
what I can do is we do have a map that I will email out to everyone, and I'm sure it can be improved, but it'll give you time to look at it before the next meeting.
but isn't it on the website? I did look at a map. Is it on the website?
It very well could be.
No,
I know I looked at a map, but it's hard to understand.
it's on the website, but is it posted at the park? That would be more helpful, I think.
Mhm.
And you're right, Paul, it would be more helpful, and it is not.
Because we went looking for the fishing pier, because it's labeled that you have a fishing pier there, and we couldn't find it.
At crossing?
Yeah, I thought it said fishing pier or fishing something.
If you go down, we call it the left meadow. If you go into Crossan Park, you continue all the way to the back until you can't go any further. There's a small pavilion there. And then there's a trail that goes down into the woods to it's a concrete pier. I don't know how much fish are there, but that's where the fishing pier is.
Is that near the bridge, Jeff?
Yes, sir. That's the steel bridge.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a great idea that, provide better access to the map or provide markings on the trail or both, and it could be a project. And I don't think that's an expensive one. So that's a good one. Anybody else? Like Jennifer is interested in open space. Do you have any opportunities you're thinking of? Like neighbors that are aging out and want to go to Florida, preserve their farm?
Not quite yet. But I will say that that is one of the things that attracted us to the area, is the preservation of their spaces. And I feel like, that's important to, I would say a large amount of, the residents or people that I know in the area. So I think Franklin Township's done a great job so far doing that. So
They have, and just last November, we've voted in a board who is open space friendly. So it's a great opportunity right now. That's why this committee was formed.
exactly.
Any other ideas?
Well, Jeff, you've got a list of projects that need to be done in and around the township. I know some of the parks. So if you could just share some of those items of projects within the parks that need to be completed to make the park safer, prettier, more functional, and then maybe something that the committee can look for larger outside volunteer groups to assist with them.
Perfect. Be happy to do so.
Yeah, I was going to mention engaging more community volunteer people, helping out, and regardless of what, if it's cleaning up trash or whatever, but just kind of getting people connected more to our parks.
Yeah, I like that, Greg. And New Garden has a great example. They have a trail team. Open Space Committee has a trail team, and they have like a work day once a month, and it's a set day. So once a month, anybody who's available, they get an email and they show up. Whoever shows up, and they do some maintenance on the trails or cut vines from trees or clear back some multiflora rows
Mm-hmm.
or pick up trash along the stream. So yeah, I think the topic there would be volunteer days, and then we'd have to decide what the work event would be. But yeah, setting up some sort of work days is a great idea.
And then I'm happy to go last to throw some things in once everyone else is done.
And some of the other ideas for volunteer days are general trail maintenance. And Jim there, he does some mowing on the Ford Farm Trail, which is great. And we use that in some of the other parks where in the summertime, they can really get overgrown even more.
One of the, I guess I'll jump in if you're done for right now, Paul, but, and I'm saying this to be long-term. One of the things I think would be neat would be to start looking at our tot lot and the equipment we have. And one of the broad ideas I had was if we could select a piece or two to be replaced, you know, in time, we could work with a playground equipment company, try and find a couple pieces that we like as a committee. And then if the committee agrees, we could almost have like a contest with the children that, you know, they could pick one out of two or three to have that replaced. I know some of the equipment has just had to have extra maintenance on it. And it just, I just think over time, it would be nice to consider.
At Crossing?
Yes, at Crossing. And all of those pieces are original to the park. And the things that really get used the most are the center unit. It's green. The tire swing. Believe it or not, the rock and rides and the, I call it the merry-go.
Yeah, it's a merry-go-round.
I guess merry-go-round in a sense. It's a flat piece of metal that you hold on to, but just a thought. And one of the other things too is we ought to keep on our radar screen is the tennis courts. They were surfaced, I'd say, approximately 8 years ago. And we're starting to have some issues with them. And it would just be nice for the committee to look at that and talk about that over time.
How much are they used?
The tennis courts are used a lot. I would say that's the most used area at the park. I think they're fantastic. You know, people really seem to love them.
It would be really nice what you're saying about the playground, because really there aren't that many kids that come there. So it'd be an interesting project maybe to figure out how to get more children to come to this particular park.
Sure.
Who typically coordinates the schedules for the soccer, football, baseball on those fields?
That is something that over time Sharon Norris has taken the lead on, and I help her with that. And then just some information about that. The township worked with Penn State, a young lady by the name of Nancy Bossold, and she helped us develop the number of events we should have on the field and the fertilizer and feed program. And, you know, once we've gotten our hands around that, it's really helped things. And I do realize COVID is a horrible, horrible thing. But this year with the leagues not using the fields, we've still been maintaining them. But boy, it's certainly given them time to heal. And they really look good.
Good.
Jeff, I would be interested one meeting for you to like show us the schedule of who plays and when and what leagues use it. That would be interesting to see.
Sure,
Who's using the park and what the fees are, that type of thing.
sure.
I was going to throw in, I would also love to see in some of these parks, I don't know if there is already, but, you know, kind of little pollinator type patches that kind of bring nature into some of these fully grassed parks. Something along those lines.
We do have, and I'm probably going to get the number wrong. We have probably 5 or 6 gardens out there
Okay.
out at the park, and certainly
that
some of
cross-
those need some loving at Crossan Park, sir.
Okay.
And here is another thing. Up front there, as you drive in on the right, if you look off to your right by the tennis court, there was an area that was called or designated as a healing garden. And this had some paths that you could walk on in stone, flowers, and then there's 4 raised planters. And early on when that was put in, I tried my best to get a gardening club or someone interested in those gardens to adopt them. And, you know, it never quite came off to do that.
Okay.
But I think that would be great to revisit and look at.
I thought Jeff was going somewhere different. Is we have those 5 or 6 gardens, and most of them were scout projects or some donation from somebody, which was great intentions and they look great. And everyone wants to come out and help build a garden, but then no one wants to come back and maintain it. So I think I learned my lesson on that as a supervisor, that even though we want to encourage scout projects and other volunteer projects, anything that requires long-term maintenance, I would try to stay away from. Like when Eli said his project was a bench, that's a great example of a project, right? You put it out, you might have to paint it once every 10 years, but it doesn't require weekly weeding and watering.
Yeah, as a scout leader, we're definitely beating the scouts up. You know, okay, great, it's a great project. How's it going to be maintained? And that's usually where they hit the brick wall.
No, that's great, Jim. I'm glad you're doing that, because it's hard for them to think of ideas, and I hope our group can think of some ideas for the scouts to do. But I want to shy away from maintenance headaches.
Yeah.
What is,
Yeah, I agree.
Can I ask a question? What has Franklin Township's position been about business sponsorships of areas like this, or having a Boy Scout troop sponsor something, like be responsible, like they have, you know, certain troops sponsor a road cleanup like that, like they have that road. Could a Boy Scout troop or a possible business sponsor the healing garden? Or is that something, like I know Newark does that, but is that something that Franklin Township wants to stay away from?
I don't believe anyone's ever came up with exactly that idea. So it's certainly something for us to consider and bat around.
Is that something that anybody would be opposed to, or is that, again, a maintenance issue and you're worried, Paul, that maybe people wouldn't follow through?
No, if as long as they're adopting something that exists, that would be a great way to take care of it, right? But if you're saying install a new garden, then no.
I'm not saying, I'm suggesting we try to have them sponsor what we have first.
Yeah.
And then maybe see how that plays out.
Yeah, and what the benefit is when you see those sponsor signs in the middle of 896 or a highway in Newark, Elkton Road, they get free advertising, right? That's what they're getting.
Absolutely, right.
And Crossan Park isn't really a high traffic park, so the value of that sign isn't that great. But sure, some local generous business might be very willing to put a sign out there and then pay for the maintenance of that, or do it with their own employees. I'm not sure how it works.
Right.
I think it's a great idea. And
I would be interested in approaching some businesses, or if Jim, if you were to know if a Boy Scout troop would want to maybe have an ongoing project, you know,
it's just service projects for them. I mean, as part of the Scout rank advancements, they're required to do service projects. That's a great thing going out and helping the community.
That can advertise the troop, but also be a continuing maintenance, you know, continuing service project. So maybe we could try to maintain what we already have before we start putting in new stuff.
I really like the idea,
Sure.
Jennifer, and for the scouts, if it was a scouts, it's the same. They would benefit from free advertising. You know, they would hang a sign that says maintained by Troop 42.
Yeah,
You know, here's our website. I think that's a benefit to them. If
I think that's a win-win for Franklin Township. So.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure how many other people have seen this. Paul may remember this. At the Healing Garden, there are a series of 4x4 borders in this garden, and they are original to the park. And the problem that we're having with those are they're just drying out and they're rotting, and it just looks horrible. You know, when you look at it. But again, I'm just asking and proposing this for a long-term project to consider.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would imagine if we were in normal times that we would meet at the park a few times and walk the park and get ideas about the park.
I was going to ask if anybody's not opposed to it with COVID, is it possible to have the next meeting at the park?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not opposed to it. I feel like if we're outside, but I don't know how everybody else feels about it.
Be fine with masks. I think I would want a mask.
Yeah. Keep our distance. I think we'd be fine.
So yeah, there's other preserves too. I mean, eventually I'd like to get around to all the parks and preserves.
Yeah, and I would love to take a look at the gardens and kind of see what's going on with them.
That's great. And I think it's important that we do meet at the park as a group. And if anyone has spare time during the day, during the week, if it suits you, I will try and adapt my schedule. If you want to go someplace, I'll get the gate go together or whatever you want.
Yeah,
Reach out. I work from home, so I could plan my day to take an hour or two break, during the day. Just let me know.
Sure. And like I said, I'm here to help all of you. So, don't be afraid to call the office.
So, moving on from the park, I think some of our other responsibilities might be Franklin Township has a master trail plan trying to connect all our preserves and the White Clay Creek State Park and make it a more walkable community. We all need some outdoor time, and it's been great with the COVID. You can see a lot of people using our trails that have never done that before. I can see a lot more use. And we have a lot of opportunity to connect a lot of trails, but it takes planning. We have to come up with a plan, show the planning commission where it is so that as subdivisions come in, they put the trails in the right way so that it connects to another subdivision, that the trails aren't just dead-ended somewhere. Everyone likes to walk in a loop or a circle. That's the preferred way. They don't like to walk out and back. So the whole general is trail planning, a master trail plan. It's 10 years, 15 years old now or something, I don't know. So it could use some update. So I think that's one of our objectives. And a hot one right now is the White Clay Creek State Park Annex down there off Stricklerville Road. I don't remember the real name for that, Jennifer.
The Strawbridge property?
Yeah, the Strawbridge property, whatever that's called. There's someone interested in doing some trails there. And so we need to make sure his trails align with our master plan, and so that we get the maximum benefit. Like somehow connecting to the Ford Farm Trail would be an example, because it's right there, right? So why not connect to it?
Yeah, definitely.
Master trail plan available somewhere?
What's that?
Is the master trail plan available somewhere to look at?
Yeah, it's like page 26 of the comprehensive plan or something like that, or
Okay.
maybe it's page 52. I don't know why I have those two numbers in my head.
Okay.
But we brought in a consultant, and we had half a dozen public meetings where we had people input, and we were really trying to focus on horse farms to try to get a trail to link horse farms so people could ride their horses, because you want to market the township as a horse horse farm area, so people want large acres and not townhouses, right? But if they have a horse and 2 acres or 3 acres and nowhere to ride it, it's not appealing. So they need somewhere to ride that horse without putting it in a trailer. So the south end of the township has a great advantage because just a few short trails and they can be in Fair Hill,
Yeah.
which has unlimited trails for horses. So that's the type of planning to market the township as an open place. And then
Yeah.
another one is we have an elementary school in the middle of our township and we don't have a single sidewalk anywhere near that elementary school. And I think that's just crazy. So of course we can't put a sidewalk for children in first grade along 896, right? But there's opportunities behind it where that nature trail is that goes into a small neighborhood that if a kid lives in that neighborhood, he can't even walk to school one property away. So I know there's a lot of government grants, state or federal grants for walkable communities to put in sidewalks. It's very difficult to do, but I think as areas get developed, if we have that plan in mind, we can connect some sidewalks. That's kind of in line with the trails, right? Sidewalks become trails.
Is that something that the school could apply for too? My kids go to Mount Olivet, which is in Maryland, and they had a grant that they got from the school board, the federal government, to put a trail in that went from the school through through the woods and through a farm, you know, and looped back around the school. But the government did pay for it. I mean, it was a fund, it was a, you know, grant.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities that come and go and you have to be aware of them and have somebody willing to write grant.
Okay.
So I'm not up on the latest, so I can't answer your question. I would say this year with the lack of tax income and tax revenue, there's not going to be much grant available, although PICO is pretty consistent about their, what is it? It's like their green grant or green program. Jeff, do you remember what I'm talking about? It's $10,000, $10,000 maximum. That's the biggest grant you can get from them, but it's once a year. So we've gotten that several years. It's added up.
I know my kid's school grant this year is going through a hand washing station, so I'm sure the grant money is going to other places now. So it's all about washing hands and preventing stuff in the next pandemic. So so I'm sure the grant money is going to be hard to come by.
What I can do is, Paul, I've got a in with Pico, and I'll see what I can get from him about any possible grants and then give that information to our committee.
Well, you have to have a good project to propose to the grant, and then you have to submit progress reports showing you've spent the money as you said, and then they come out and confirm and then then give you the money. But I don't think we have any projects that are shovel ready, we're too.
Oh, no, this is just very baby step information, just to see when the next round is.
So I think another objective of ours should be open space opportunities. When we had an open space committee, that's all we focused on. We didn't focus on the parks at all. That was Jeff's job. We only looked at trying to preserve land, and we were able to preserve about 25% of the township, although we can't take credit for all of that. Some of the bigger acquisitions of the Strawbridge property were not any of our doing. We were just lucky to get federal money for that, or I can't remember the name of the preservation group that did that. Conservation Fund. That was like 30 million or something like that. That's way over our head, but it helped, right? And so the way we did that, though, is kept a running list of large properties that might come up for development soon and try to work with those owners and give them the option. A lot of owners don't even know there's an option to preserve their land. So I would think maintaining a list of large property owners and deciding who would be good to talk to. Now, the township doesn't have any more open space money left. It's all used up, but there are county and federal grants that they should be made aware of to try to help them get through something. I don't think we should just give up on it. if you have an interested owner, we should try to help them and point them in the right direction.
I think one of the long-term people, Paul, I don't know how you feel, we need to talk to is Dave Hodden.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest farm left. So that's the big target. Yeah. But I don't want to start throwing out names yet until we get a list together and everyone looks at it.
Yes, sir.
And I would ask, if we do get into names and farms in this committee, the last thing you want to do is spread that around. Hey, we're targeting the XYZ farm, right? You don't want to do that because it's a very personal decision for that farmer and it's private business. And until the paper's signed, they might change their mind. So we really have to keep it confidential. Although this is a public meeting, you can discuss, we just give it a name, you know, the XYZ farm. And then if we really have a hot one where we think we're actually going to do something, we would have to call an executive session and eliminate the public access part of this. But all our meetings otherwise need to be public access so they can hear what we're saying and what we're talking about. And we want to encourage the public to come, right? More volunteers, the better.
Correct.
So with Mary's GIS history, she might be the landowner, the one able to get that large land list. There is a program called Chesco Views.
Yeah, I've been on there. I have ArcMap. Chester County does have the parcel data available.
Yep.
We actually have all the parcel data, which gives like, you know, names and all that kind of stuff. So all that is available.
Yeah, and then some of the other things for open space would be, we could bring in like Brandywine Conservancy or Natural Lands Trust, two of the local land trusts, to come in and talk to this group sometimes during our meetings, just to educate us on the process and how we can help them with properties. So I have to warn you though that open space is a very touchy subject. There's a lot of people in our township who love it, and that's why this board's been voted in. But then there's a very hardened minority, maybe 20% of the township, or even 10, I don't know, that is adamantly opposed to it, that believes that the market should do whatever it wants and that we should not in any way try to preserve land or do anything as a government body. So you have to be careful who you're talking to and understand what their beliefs are. To me, I don't remember who said it, Jennifer, I guess, that, you know, I moved out here for the rural nature, and I would like to keep it that way as long as possible. And it's for the benefit of future generations, right? If you get rid of all your farms, how are you going to feed people?
One thing that's interesting is what New Garden does is they do have like a little farmers market on Sunday mornings. That might be something to consider, to get like more people coming to the park.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. They do have a little advantage though, because they have Route 41 or Lancaster Pike going by that has a lot of traffic where.
Yeah.
But we have 896, so maybe, I don't know.
Was that the New Garden Growers Market or?
Yeah. Right by
Okay.
the old police station.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my sister-in-law is running that right now, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Nice.
So anybody else? How about Jim? You've been quiet. I mean, what your Jim's here representing the Franklin Sportsman's Club, the hunting club. Any thoughts on that? Or
I'm representing myself primarily, not the club, although I'm part of that. All good ideas. Like I said, preserving space, if we can find money, great. I mean, it's ultimately, I'm here to, make sure there's sound fiscal management of all this. You said the parks, keeping them as safe and up to date as possible. Like I said, I know there's projects, and I think we touched on it, trying to get some other volunteer groups in to help the township out. And I know the Franklin Sportsman, like I said, upwards of 150 hours of volunteer time we give to the township, road cleanups. We've done a lot of work.
Can I interrupt a second? I mean, I've lived here for 5 years and I've heard the Sportsman Association. Could you just give background to it? Just, I don't know if everybody else already knows what it is. I'm just not as familiar with it, but I've heard it mentioned in some of the supervisor meetings. I'm just not as familiar with it.
Okay. I don't know, 8, 9 years ago, when the township started acquiring all these open spaces, they put out a feeler if anybody wanted to form a hunting club and help control the population of deer on the properties, to just try to contain the population a little bit, reduce damage, reduce Lyme disease spread, because deer tend to be a large carrier of the ticks. So we were able to form a club, and on the open spaces in the fall, we go out there and archery hunt and shotgun hunt in the wintertime. And in return, we provide some volunteer services back to the township. Fixing, repair, road cleanups, damage down in Crossing Park. We've repaired that, graffiti, painting, benches stained, repaired. Back in the fall, we installed the 5 new grills that the township had purchased.
How do people join the club? Like, I guess that's what's more.
There's a link through the township website. So, and throughout the year, township residents or other can submit their requests that they're interested in. If there's openings that year, Franklin Township residents have priority to get it voted in or join it first. So if we hold membership to 35, if we lose 5 people, then we can invite 5 new members to come on.
And is there like a fee to belong to the?
Yeah, we pay a yearly fee. The club holds $1 million of liability insurance, and
I've heard it mentioned. I just didn't know what was involved.
But yeah, and then we're also the eyes and ears out there in the field too, because we've found non-members on these preserves hunting. Some walking through, you find rifle cartridges, which are no in this area to hunt with. Dead deer, dumped deer along was that Creek Road there, the Stone Road. I think that's the right name for it.
Correct.
People are poaching deer and dumping the carcasses. A couple years ago, a couple of members were out just walking around the preserves, and there along the creek there, Creek Road in the stream, found 5 or 7 dead deer in the creek itself, and called in the game commission. So we worked at the state level to find out what the cause it was. And here, what had happened, a power line had dropped down in the creek, was still energized. The deer went across and got electrocuted.
Wow.
So it's just freaky things like that we see. And it's
So who oversees the Sportsman Association? Is it's its own board, or is it?
we have our own board and report up to the township during our active time of the year. From September to March, I report monthly to the township of our actions, what we did, what we harvested, our service projects completed, and things like that.
And will they ever expand past the 35? Or I guess I'm more curious just because.
No, that's just because of the size of the properties, and we have them zoned out, so only one person can hunt like a 10-acre section of that property. So it's all safety zones are marked in there. So
I'm just curious because there's lots of deer on my property, and my son has Lyme disease right now. So I'm curious. He's on the doxycycline right now because he got it fishing off of Stricklersville Road.
Well, we're always looking for some more places too. And you know, everybody takes, in the fall, we have a proficiency shoot for both archery and shotgun. So we qualify members each year, make sure the guns are shooting straight, or they can shoot a bow. So we're not crippling the animals and they're running off anywhere. So.
Okay, thank you. I just had heard about it and I just wasn't really sure what was involved. Thank you.
Yep.
To be clear, Jennifer, it is a private club. It just has
Oh,
permissions.
It's not through Franklin Township?
No, it's just we're Franklin Sportsman's Association, but I don't know, 70% of us are residents from Franklin Township.
But it's each year the Board of Supervisors gives them a permit to hunt
Correct.
annually.
Oh, okay. So only people from,
That club has the ability to hunt on the township's open spaces.
oh, okay, okay.
And the township can at any time go to our website and look to see who's out hunting during the hunting season.
Actually, Jim, that's a great point. That's one of the features that we put in place for the hunting club is so that people don't head out to the preserve and then see, oh, there's a hunter. I don't want to walk there today. But they can look on the website ahead of time and then decide where to go. And I don't think that's well known.
Oh, I did not know that because we just actually were walking a couple of weeks ago at the beginning of the thing and I was nervous and we went to a different park because I was nervous about, you know, whether somebody was hunting there or not.
Yeah, well, during the active hunting season, we post along the edge, especially crossing along the edge of the woods there, down the lower end of the parking lot. There's a signboard and we have a map there and it shows, put little numbers up there denoting that there's a hunter in that zone in those woods at that particular time.
Okay.
Yeah, and just for information, it's not hunting season right now.
No.
No, this was in February.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Everything's closed in February anyway.
Oh, okay.
Closes the end of January.
Okay. And I'm embarrassed to say I'm married to a hunter, but I don't know any of the ins and outs and I'm not familiar with it. And I was with my kids and I was like, forget it, we'll pick a different park.
Well, he must not be doing too good if all those deer are on your property then.
I will not let him shoot them on my property. I'm trying to raise fishermen, not hunters.
But yeah, like I said, the Sportsman's Club does a lot of volunteer and it would be nice to spread the charm because Jeff always has an extended list that, you know, we can get to some of it, but not all of it.
Okay. And is that something that's required to be part of the association that they have to serve a certain amount of hours?
Yeah, we require our members to complete at least 2 service projects each year before they can hunt.
Oh, okay.
So our membership starts in January and not July. Our prior year ends the end of June, so application process starts, you know, next month.
Does the township come up with the service projects or how do?
Yes, Jeff, we have a service project coordinator in the club and he speaks with Jeff on a regular basis. In addition to with PennDOT, we yeah, I'll get the right road. I can't think of the road. We do quarterly road cleanups, you know, based on agreements with PennDOT and other service projects. The township big cleanup, we participate in that. And, you know, a lot of junk's been pulled up over the embankments there along Creek Road over the years.
And so is that now something that Jeff, the Sportsman Association, and this organization would now work together to decide what the new projects are?
For me, you know, everyone should get the same information, so I'm going to provide it for everyone in our committee to comment on.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know there was some conversation that there's a few projects in the park, but because this new committee was being put together, Jeff was just holding off a little bit just to make sure everybody was in agreement. So
Sure.
of the priority of projects and what really should be addressed first.
Yep, and I've always considered it a living document that changes depending on the circumstances.
I know, and Paul mentioned it earlier on some of the preserves going in, chopping vines. I mean, that's one of our projects to get in Banishire Preserve and just try to get those wild vines out of the trees so it doesn't kill all the trees.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about as far as like just management of the preserves. Like, for instance, the Goodwin Preserve. Do they mow that meadow, or is it left, mowed once a year type thing? Like how does that work, that process?
Twice a year. It just so happens because it's so close, the Hocking Farm will cut the open meadows 2 times a year. And then the township, depending on schedule and money, we like to go in and cut in between the trees, usually in just a singular direction, just to help manage the mile-a-minute vine and such.
Right.
And I know you've been instrumental, Greg, in doing a lot of work out at Goodwin, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like who comes up with that schedule of mowing twice a year? Is that?
It all depends on the rain because it can get pretty wet in Goodwin.
No, so let me jump in. That was you're talking about the open meadow. That was after we established the preserve. That was through a lot of input from Natural Lands Trust and their bird experts about the nesting meadow birds, and that the nesting season would be over in like July, and that we weren't allowed to do our cut until July or something like that. So that's how it was established, is the farmer knows they can't mow until that's done, and then they try to maximize it so they can get 2 cuts of hay because they're selling the hay, right? So they do it for free in exchange for hay. It used to be the deal. I don't know if it still is or not.
That's been the deal, yes.
Okay.
But mowing twice a year was a plan, and we had a lot of input from bird people on that. So
I know. I mean, ecologically, I know they kind of recommend doing it like early spring is kind of the best time when you're gonna not kill, the insects and the nesting birds and everything. I just didn't know if that was an option to change that at all, or kind of. I mean, I know as far as if you're making money off the hay, that changes the way you look at it. But
well, I think in spring that's when the nest building is going on. So, but I don't know. Maybe it's look into and advise Jeff on when the best time is. But I don't even remember who the people who advised us were, but I think it was Natural Lands Trust.
Yeah.
I don't remember either, but it just depends on the season. It's been done in, late June and early July. It just depends on the rain and the growing season, trying to manage stuff.
It started when we planted those, we had a project to plant those 2,500 trees you see in there, the green tubes in Goodwin. That's a project I did with Bill Scalish, and we had about 200 volunteers come out and plant them. So that might be another option for us, is any tree plantings, because the township is in need of stormwater control measures, and tree planting is one of those you get credit for. And so some of the farms around here might be open to tree planting along the stream banks and such.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, there's organizations that'll donate the trees, and we just have to arrange the volunteers. Sometimes you have to buy the tubes and the stakes, but usually you can get it paid for. Anyway, that was coordinated through Stroud Water Research Group. I don't know if you guys have heard of Stroud, and so Stroud has helped me lay out the trees and decide what trees to plant, and that's where it came from. And that was through the Tree Vitalize program.
With, well, they used to work with Westchester University a lot on their GIS work.
What's that? The
Stroud used to work with Westchester University on their, I forget what their open space is now. I'm yeah, they're,
The Stroud Preserve?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Are we out of ideas? Are we out of time? It's 7:49.
I see one of our supervisors joined, us, Mr. Gerstenhaber. I didn't know if he might have something to say tonight.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I guess I'm not allowed to be on the board, the pro board, which is fine with me. I have enough to do, but one of the things that I wanted to say about this group, and I know Greg, you had some questions about why we made these decisions and about cutting schedules and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
In my view, everyone on this board or everyone on this committees, their job is to look at how we're doing things and be empowered to make suggestions, right? So if you say, God, we are doing a odd cutting schedule in X park, we got to bring it to the board. That's your guys' job. So just because we've made a decision doesn't mean that it's not open for discussion. So if you guys have an idea, anybody, if you guys have an idea, something we can do better, something we should change, that's something that's why you exist, is that you guys are our eyes and ears and bodies out in the parks, understanding what we need. And one of the reasons that we wanted Jim on the board is because of the FSA, and they are they're in there all year long doing work. And so there's this good group of people already established that can do the work, that are knowledgeable. And I don't want you guys to feel like, well, they have already made a decision. And so that's how we do things. That's not your job is to take a critical look at how we do things with our parks, our recreational areas, and our open spaces, and help us make decisions. So thank you very much, all of you, for volunteering. I know this is, it doesn't pay, the job doesn't pay. And
What?
so I'm really excited. Yeah. so I'm very excited that you guys are all here, taking time out of your evening to talk about this stuff. It's really great work, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
So Eli, you've been quiet. Any thoughts from Eli before we go?
I really like Jeff's idea about upkeep in the park, maintaining the equipment and taking some of the older stuff and replacing it with newer equipment. I remember that park when I was about 6, 7, 8 years old, and the equipment that I used then is still there today. I just find it kind of strange. So I think it would be a really good idea to get in at all the equipment that's still in and replace or do maintenance as needed. Otherwise, there was a lot of good ideas that circulated, and it's all really good stuff to think about. But that's my main input is I really like that idea, and also specifically about the trails at Crossing, particularly in regards to what is it called? The areas with the flowers, the meditation groves or whatever.
Healing garden work, sir.
The meditation gardens. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can I add more on the garden part?
Definitely.
I mean, I mentioned making like pollinator gardens. I just feel kind of that, if they're planted correctly, they shouldn't need much maintenance at all. They should kind of take care of themselves. And, if they're native plants, they don't require more watering or any of that type of stuff once they're established. So, I mean, I would definitely like to look into, the work that's already been done and kind of just see if we can build on that or, just, maintain those, I guess, or see what they need. But I mean, as far as maintenance, I don't think, unless it's, a formal garden, but if it's, kind of like a wildflower or pollinator garden, shouldn't require too much effort.
Well, to me, it's certainly something to look into and for the group to consider. I think it's a great idea.
Just a thought, that's all.
I'm not opposed, so I just feel like I need to go and see what's already there.
Yeah,
But,
definitely.
But I definitely think it's a great idea, especially if it reduces the burden on mowing and, you know, and fertilization. I mean, I feel like that as we could reduce that and, you know, have less to mow, that's always better too.
Right.
So, Jeff, we talked about the mowing schedule at Goodwin. What's the mowing schedule at Crossan? They leave some of those pastures pretty high, right, during the year.
Again, I can provide a map. It's a little more difficult to explain, but we are on a 7 and 14-day mowing schedule out at the park. And of course, that's something that could change. But as Paul has stated, what I would call the meadow areas are left to 1 or 2 times a year to be cut. And that's what I would call the left and right meadows towards the back.
Hocking does that too?
He does do that, yes. And then Franklin Preserve, Kenny Roberts does that, which is right next door to Crossan.
Because that's significantly more acreage than Goodwin.
Yes, sir.
So Greg, if you're interested in, you know, managing the meadow, that might be your first look, is Crossan and Franklin and Goodwin.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, if we're mowing, I mean, I'm looking at ecologically, you know, how we're affecting it, and if we're mowing in July, we're chopping down all the milkweed, and we're chopping down at the height of the pollinator season.
Right.
So, you know, just something to consider. And I mean, if we can mow it, I do have some literature from Natural Lands as far as land management, you know, kind of recommendations. So I can definitely go through there.
Yeah.
But
and I know Longwood Gardens manages their meadow too, so we could actually see what they do or ask them for advice.
yeah, definitely.
I know at some point you do have to mow though, because the invasives in here just go crazy and they take over.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've learned, it's always late winter to early spring is kind of when you get rid of the shrubs and the invasives that will take over, and that way it has the least effect on pollinators and birds and all that. But yeah, we can definitely look into it more.
Yeah, there you go. That's Secretary needs to write that down. Greg's gonna.
I got it. I got 4 pages.
Greg's gonna study meadow management. The one caveat we have to keep aware of though is if we wait till all the way through winter and the grass is laying on the ground, the farmer can't harvest it, and then he won't do it for free, right? Because if he can't get a bale of hay out of it,
right? Yeah,
we have a trade-off.
That's a trade-off for sure.
But maybe there's a time that makes everyone happy.
Yeah.
Well, if everyone's out of ideas for today, I will go back just as an extra safety precaution. Decided on the first Wednesday of the month at 7 o'clock. And then I'm just going to have Sharon triple confirm that with our master calendar. And then that's one of the things we'll get back to you tomorrow on as well.
Jeff, can I just ask a quick question about the one of the items says budget? Is there a budget, or how is that?
That's
recommending to the supervisors, or?
That's something I think we're going to have to discuss over time. Right now, I don't know if you remember Joan, she kind of holds the purse strings. And then any large projects, I think it would be beneficial for Greg or the group to attend the board meetings to propose them with pricing. And that's what I'm most excited about, doing all this as a group.
And leading up to that, are we able to find out like how much the town is spending on mowing? That's in the regular budget?
Yes.
Okay, so we could look at that. Okay, I'll look that up.
Yeah, Joan does an excellent job of tracking all that. So I'm sure she could pull that report out on it.
Okay.
Yeah, Jennifer, maybe that's you could bring it next month, is because it'd be pretty hard to look up, because it'll be mowing at each of the preserves and parks, and field mowing versus meadow mowing and trail mowing. So yeah, Joan could look at that. And then there's maybe money spent on maintaining the tot lot and, buying dirt for the baseball field or whatever. There's other expenses.
Would everybody be okay if I email Joan and just ask for, a summary of those expenses, just so we know what is being spent on that right now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's the budget for the Parks and Recreation for the year?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And it's not necessarily our budget to spend, but it's what's being currently spent on all of those outdoor spaces that are now part of this ordinance.
Yeah.
What the township has budgeted for the year.
Okay. And Jeff, how should we do that? Should I send an email to Joan and I could just copy everybody, or just use the email?
Well, what I think I would do is I would include Joan and myself. And then once you're satisfied that you have the information, then you disseminate it within the group.
Okay. Okay. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's more of a curiosity factor to see maybe.
Yeah, it's the touch points of where they put the money. An idea might tickle our thought pattern.
Absolutely. Well, if no one has anything more, with Mr. Sachs being the chairman, he could offer a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I have a question. So the first Wednesday is July 1st. Is that what we are doing for our next meeting?
And it doesn't revolve around me. I will be out of town that week. It doesn't mean the rest of you can't meet.
I didn't know, since it was so close to the 4th, what we're doing.
It might make sense just to touch base, and then we get at least get it moving here.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm not going to be around then either because of the 4th.
They want to just feed our ideas and I'm not sure what word I'm looking for, our mission statement around, and then share it with the team. And then we can move forward for our next meeting in August.
Paul, do you have any thoughts, or Greg?
No, Jim, I didn't understand. Are you saying meet on the 1st or not meet?
No. Since it doesn't look like we'll be able to get together, just share our ideas among the team about our mission statement, and hopefully between now and then beginning August we can get something in place by bouncing it back and forth between us.
Okay. That's fine with me.
So the next meeting would be August 5th then.
Okay, I'll take your word for that.
Well, that's the first Wednesday in August.
I don't have a calendar in front of me.
Are we not able to fit any other?
I didn't know if you
Yeah.
go somewhere else in July, later in July.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to have like an informal meeting if Greg wanted to have us come meet him at the park? Is that, you had talked about doing that? Maybe do some of that stuff in July? Maybe.
That's a good idea.
It'll work.
Yeah.
We like use July to meet at some of the parks, just informally, without all the pressure of having everybody, on a Zoom call, and we could just meet at the parks, and then, meet in August to then talk about everything that we don't all necessarily have to be there, but we could kind of get some information before August.
I think that would be great. And then if someone in the group is willing just to write maybe a little paragraph or two what you discussed, so the rest of us know, that would be helpful.
Is that okay with you, Craig, that you could coordinate and have us meet you a couple times?
Yes. I mean, are you talking about different meetings at different parks, or just one July meeting, or?
I think Paul had mentioned meeting, like, at one point, seeing a couple of the different parks. I'd like to just maybe see
Yeah,
from your perspective or from other people's perspective, like meet at the parks.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would love to go visit all of the parks. I mean, I'm definitely willing to do that. It's up to all you guys.
Probably a meeting though, because getting in your car and going from park to park, I mean, it'd take an hour to explore any of
Right.
the parks, right?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Not every park in one day, like.
Right. Pick a park.
Pick a park and meet here, and then maybe like next week say we'll try to meet this park. I mean, it's a lot more on you, and maybe we can't all get to all the parks, but at least a couple eyes on each park.
Yeah, the big ones are Croston and Franklin, and the third one would be Banffshire. Those are the big parks.
Yeah, I bet very few of them could find White Clay Crescent.
Yeah, I mean, good when you can almost drive by, but it is worth getting out and seeing. And then White Clay Crescent is, yeah, tough to find. And that, I mean, that's a topic right there, is better access to White Clay Crescent Park. That'll be your challenge till next meeting, is go on the township website and figure out where White Clay Crescent Park is.
So should we pick a park and pick a date and go from there?
Sure.
Well, I'm open as far as my schedule.
Is next Thursday evening possible to meet at a park?
Let me see.
That's the 25th.
Not for me.
No, can we make it later?
Yeah.
What time are you thinking?
Crossan would make sense. It's the biggest one.
Kyle, would you be hurt if we met at a park without you?
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah.
Do we want to meet at a park on July 1st and just we could get the information to Kyle?
Sounds good.
Yeah, that works for me.
So
meet at Crossan.
Well, I know Kyle was really wanted to talk about Crossan and the trails. So would you want to pick Franklin or Banffshire, or would you be okay, Kyle, if we met at Crossan? I don't want to exclude you.
Oh yeah, I've been over to I mean, I know, you know, I had a hard time finding the gardens because, you know, and I'm fine with that.
Okay. Do we want to?
I mean, I know what it looks like, and you know, I know the problems already over there.
Okay.
So
would July 1st at Crossan be okay?
Works for me.
Yeah, works for me.
Mary, you were asking about a time.
What time are you thinking?
I don't know. I guess, does 7 work? Is that too late? I don't know how late we're allowed to work.
Not till dusk.
No sunset, so.
So we'd be okay at 7?
Yep.
Okay.
7 works.
And I'm probably with Mary. I don't get insulted if I wear a mask. I might take it off. My son leaves for the Naval Academy in 2 weeks, and so we're supposed to technically be quarantining from 2 weeks from today. So I might have to wear a mask just because we need to make sure we don't get him sick before he leaves. So
I'm paranoid. I'll wear one anyway.
so, oh, okay. Well, then 7 o'clock next Thursday.
no, July 1st.
July 1st.
July 1st. July 1st. Yes.
At Crossan, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
And then Jeff, did you just want us to type up a little blurb? I could do that for Kyle because she'll be out of town.
Yeah, that would be great. I just think it would be good for those who won't be in attendance, just as a good practice going forward, just so we can all be kept.
Kyle, I'll take notes and I'll send them your way.
Okay, thank you.
And Kyle, what do you think is a comfortable time for you to have minutes back and jammed up?
I would say, what's today? Thursday, by Monday, for sure.
Okay.
You know, I have to decipher my notes. Now, do I just send them to Greg?
Well, you have everyone's email. I would just send it to the group.
Oh, all right, all right.
Great. Anything else?
I think we're out of ideas for now.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, there you go. Second.
All right.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Nice meeting you.
July 1st.
Thank
See
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks.